In God's timing and providence, we live in this part of the world that we don't have the liberty that you have in the United States. But God called us for such a time like this. We need to be stand faithful. And as I say, we'll not run away from the face of persecution. And maybe the good Lord has a program for us that India is so needy, but without Christ, deeply religious, but sadly lost.
Greetings and welcome to the Missions Podcast, the show that explores your hard questions on missions, theology, and practice to help goers think and thinkers go. I'm Alex Kochman, Director of Communications and Engagement with ABWE, joined here once again by Scott Dunford, pastor of Western Hills Church in San Mateo, California. And you are you, and we thank you for joining us on the show today. And did you know that the Missions Podcast now has an option for premium subscribers? If you can't get enough of this show, you want to hear more of us, including exclusive bonus content, opportunities to webinars, and other opportunities to engage and network with us and other listeners, what are you waiting for? Go to missionspodcast.com and sign up today for $9.99 per month. You can get access to more content that's going to equip you in your service to the Lord. And in fact, Scott, this is another reason why people should not only listen, but watch on YouTube. If you sign up, you will also receive this handy dandy mug with, that's right, our logo on it. And let me tell you, Scott, this is, I know you can't feel it, but this is a nice mug. It's one of these that's got the little, like travel lid. So it's because I don't like travel mugs. Okay. I like the feeling of ceramic, but it doesn't travel well, but it's got the lid that goes on and it's got a cork bottom too. So, this coaster, I've got a coaster here on the desk, but you know what? Goodbye coaster. I'm just putting this down. And it is its own coaster. How beautiful is that, Scott?
I need one of those. Like our listeners are going to get one before I do. That's pretty
Scott,
special.
You can sign up at missionspodcast.com and hit the premium tab at the top, and then you will get your gift, and you can watch our content.
And I can watch our content. Also, it's so great, Alex. I'm in.
Well, we are glad to be coming to you, and all joking and shenanigans aside, we are a show that's about the global cause of Christ. We don't want to just talk about ideas. We actually want to talk about people that are putting their faith into action. And so, Scott, I'm excited to introduce our guest this week, which is a national partner that I had the opportunity to get to know just a few months ago when he visited our church with his wife. First, just a little bit of context. Many of you listeners know the Missions Podcast is a part of ABWE. ABWE is not just a singular missions agency. It is that. It's also a global family of ministries doing the Great Commission in different ways. Yes, by sending missionaries from the States to foreign contexts, but also there's a whole division of ABWE that focuses specifically on doing ministry by partnering with nationals who are already living across the globe, oftentimes in places where American missionaries can't as easily set foot. And that division, Live Global, is an important ministry. And Pastor Stephen joins us now from New Delhi. Pastor Stephen is, I think, one of the most, well, you can't make comparisons here. Let me just say, one of my favorite Live Global partners that ABWE and our churches get to help support. Pastor Stephen, thank you for joining us today and being on the show.
Appreciate that.
Give us just a 1 or 2 minute rundown of what your ministry is, where you're serving in India, the work that the Lord has called you to.
India is so diverse. It is land of diversity and a lot of challenges. And there are over 1 billion, and I think it is the largest populated country in the world now. So I cannot represent the whole India because of the diversity, the cultures, and the different as it is. I live in the Northeast, but I had the chance to come to even in New Delhi, planting a church is almost 15 years ago, and the church is growing. But I relocate myself back in Manipur in the Northeast. And then from the Northeast, I think we're privileged that the ministry started in the Northeast. a little over 100 years ago that missionary from Wales or missionary from Britain and even from US, they came in the early 60 and late 50, even missionary from the Baptist Mid Mission came and worked among our people.
Mm.
So we are independent Baptist churches, and we are privileged that to see the Christianity growing in the northeastern region. But the northeastern region is again very different from the mainland India. Culturally, we are different, language different, and people group will be more Oriental than typical Indian.
Yeah.
That's why we have more access to I think, the eastern region, that part of the country. We have access to Burma or China, Philippines, and we'll be more accepted in some of these countries rather than in the typical mainland Indian. So that is one footing that we have, and we try to enjoy that. So over the years, I'm involved in church planting and then doing ministry, compassionate endeavor like starting children home, and then Christian education, and even Christian camping and Bible school or Bible colleges. So that's in a nutshell what I'm doing right now.
You're one of these guys who's doing so much for the Lord. I don't know when you sleep, but we praise God for it. And yeah, it's interesting the dynamics that are happening there in Northeast India, like you describe. I mean, I think a lot of us might know this, some of us might not, but you look historically, the idea of a modern state of India that's unified, that's a recent historical phenomenon, all things considered, and really there's multiple nations with India, at least in the sense of people groups. It's so many, and yeah, you're describing, it's much closer to an Asian culture than what people maybe here in the U.S. would think of when they think of India and the subcontinent. But one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on is you blew my mind, brother, sharing with our church and sharing with us afterwards over lunch a few months ago. You blew my mind describing the nature of the political situation on the ground in Manipur and how it's affecting the church. So walk us through that before we go further.
It's hard to tell from where we come, maybe from China or from the Eastern world, but it's a migration that happened, but it happens before India was divided. But when India got independent in 1947, this area, I think, we're quite different, as I said. And there are political reasons behind it. There are religious behind it. Most of the Indian would embrace Hinduism and a little section Buddhist. And I think it is the second largest Muslim nation in the world. But when it comes to the Christian population, of course, the Lord has been good to us. We have all the good missionaries like William Carey, Army Mike, chemical like that, even in Punjab area, praying hide. And they did their best. But today, looking at Christianity, the percentage might not be even 4 or 5 or 6%. So, but with a population of 1 billion plus, that's still a very good number. We have the most maximum number of unreached people in India. It's deeply religious but sadly lost. So you have all the religions, but when it comes to Christianity, of course, the church in the Northeast are thriving to some extent. And because of that political situation and religious situation, sometimes even the typical Indian would think that we have connection with the West. And then the West is instigating this reason to do insurgency work or to uprise and all of that. So in that way, we are looked differently. There is some kind of discrimination also. So over the years, the political reasons behind and the religious behind all of this contribute to some kind of instability. Northeast would have the maximum number of insurgency or militancy group that who would like to have some kind of self-governance. Some would fight for independency. So that's why we have all kinds of this problem. And when it comes to Christianity, as I said recently, you know what happens in India. They have built up the temple after 500 years of dispute with the Muslim. Now, the whole India is rejoicing, rebuilding the temple, and then back to idol. And this become kind of threat for the Christian people also. Of course, we are not afraid. The church need to be purged. And through persecution, I believe the church will become stronger. But what happened in the Northeast is that because of this political and religious issue behind this, there is some kind of discrimination or stepmotherly treatment over the years. And now, since May the 3rd, there is uprising or there is some kind of ethnic conflicts between the, I would say, mainland or the Manipuri and all those Christian people who live in the hills are called tribal. But those who live in the valley are called the valley people. And what happened, the sad thing was just in a matter of 2 or 3 days, all the churches in the valley, exactly in the capital, they were burned down, over 100 churches and all the Christian institutions.
Wow.
And then all the Christian people were kicked out. They have to flee for their life. And few unfortunate ones, they were caught and they were beaten to death. So I think till today we have over 150 people got killed. And then more than 40 to 50 people displaced, even in the neighboring states. And a lot of places, over 200 burned down. So now there is a clear-cut separation between the valley and hill people or Christian and Hindu people. So Christian people cannot get into the valley, and then the valley people cannot come to the hill. But the valley people, they are in the state capital, they have the airport, they have all the communication, they have all the big office. So the suffering for the Christian people is that now we don't even access to the state capital airport to fly out from our home state or from our town. We have to travel at least 14 to 15 hours by road and then spend one night in the neighboring capital.
Stephen, can I cut in real quick? I want to make sure our listeners catch all of the nuances of what you're saying. So just to run things back a little bit, this conflict started stirring up in its current violent form about a year ago, May 3rd. And this was when there was, I guess, what started as a somewhat peaceful protest by the Kuki-Zo, that's the mostly Christian tribe, was advocating against, the high court had recommended that the Hindu Maitai tribe be included in the official scheduled tribe list. So in other words, there was going to be a level of official recognition of this loose, disparate Hindu tribe on that list, which would have the effect of marginalizing this Christian tribe. And so this peaceful protest sparked violence, and it's spread ever since then, right? And so you shared some of the numbers, but we're talking over 300 churches burned, hundreds of villages, over 150 deaths, over 60,000 displaced, and ongoing kidnappings and arsons every day. And these are the people that you're pastoring in the Hill Tribes areas. Is that right?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that we get that. So the dynamics here, there's so much going on. Scott, I want to give you a chance to cut in so that this is for our listeners to understand that. So we're dealing with the Hill Tribes that are largely Christian, the Valley Tribes that are the Maitais and others who are Hindu, and pastoring the people in the midst of this. Scott, I can't even imagine what that feels like. If you're listening to the Missions Podcast, you probably already believe in missions. You believe that God is working for his glory in Christ among the nations, and that we have a role to play in that important and unfolding task. But maybe you just haven't quite found that role yet. Maybe you thought you were called, but maybe you're not sure now. Or maybe you've been a sender for a long time, and you're starting to get uncomfortable. Maybe like the Lord is leading you to do more. Well, ABWE's 24-hour demo is for you. Visit a global missions agency with missionaries in more than 80 nations. Meet a host of veteran missionaries and worship and pray and break bread with others who are just like you, in your shoes. Leave ready to take action with your next step of obedience identified so that you can do it. Now, this demo event happens multiple times year-round, so you can find the next event and register now at demo.abwe.org and use the promo code PODCAST. That's promo code PODCAST in all caps to receive a discount on your registration fee. This could be the thing that you're waiting and praying for. Again, visit demo.abwe.org and use promo code podcast to register now and come to an event that could unlock your next step in obeying the Great Commission.
Yeah, I just want to just ask a couple questions if you can answer them. And if it's a security issue, then don't, of course. But
Okay.
I'm here in India. I'm here in India. I'm here in the Bay Area.
Freudian slip.
Sometimes it feels like we're close to, like we're in India. We have a huge Indian population. We have people from Punjab. We have Sikhs from Punjab. A lot of people from East India that are from the tech industry. My realtor is from Mumbai, Bombay, and so we have Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis all over here. But one thing I continue to hear in the news is just that it's not just the Christian minorities that have been persecuted, but pretty much any minority group in India that is not Hindu has been kind of a focus. Do you see what's happening in your area as part of a larger national problem that's going on all over, or is this very localized to just your situation?
For the time being, it is very localized. The other states are having peace. The only problem in Manipur, it's a small state. As I said, the state is divided into hill and valley people. The hill people embraced Christianity over the past 100 years, and then the valley people were Hindu for all these years. Of course, there are few segments even among the valley people who are Hindus, who are Christian. But even they had a hard time because now it's overrun by the mob, and then I don't know what elements are behind all of those. So it's hard to tell. But the way I look at it is that since they attacked the churches and burned down the churches, so people may not accept it. It's a war between the Hindu and the Christian, but I would say that then Huey burned down all the churches and then kick out all the Christian people. So it's in ugly form.
I want to follow that up, but I just want to say something to our listeners. Like, I think as Christians and as people who love the spread of the gospel, when we think about politics, we often, our nation, America, I'm talking to mostly Americans. Of course, there's a lot of other North Americans and others that are listening as well, but particularly citizens of the United States, we need to we have the ability to petition our government when they're doing things and supporting leaders, often for political reasons or power reasons, and how they treat Christians. And I know that our political leaders can have a huge impact on the ground by petitioning these national leaders like President Modi or Prime Minister Modi, to treat Christian minority groups in a way that is right and good. And I think we should do that because our nation lately in the last 10 years or so has gotten really close to the President Modi. He's been very pro-American, but he's also very anti-Christian. And I think that's just important for our listeners to recognize. So back to your situation, though, you talk about the hill tribes being mostly Christian. How has that influenced their side of this conflict? You have this conflict between Hindus and Christians. How has Christianity shaped the way that Christians are responding to this?
It's hard now, as I say, that we are in dilemma. People may not want to put it somewhere between the Hindu and the Christian, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Now, it is a fight between the state and then the hill people, and then the state or the valley people control all the machinery of the states. So they control the government, they control the state force. So, and then they have all the arms that they had. But for the Christian, it's taking up arms for survival, which sometimes it's even hard to understand. If they don't take up arms, then I don't know what will happen. But our goal is to pray that the Lord will intervene, work in the hearts of the Christian, and then we'll continue to love them just as they are, because we are told even to love our enemies. But as of now, this is not happening because even doing evangelism or evangelistic effort is not just possible. We are supposed to reach them out love. But if you see them, you may kill them. Or if they see you, they will kill you. So this is the hard situation which we face.
I think that's important for listeners to understand, Stephen. Evangelism can't happen if you're not alive. there's a certain you have to exist first. And
Yes.
oftentimes I think many times we Americans, again, speaking for all Americans here, let's just go ahead and speak for all Americans, is that we do
That's what
have it
we're prone to
so
do.
relatively easy, and we take so much for granted the ideas of pluralism, the idea of having to fight for our right to exist, the idea that the government needs to grant to us, or at least recognize the right that we have to exist. And that's sort of the fight that you're in right now. Now, help us understand as well, when you talk about the government giving recognition to this, to the fact that the Kukizo are predominantly Christian and should have some level of self-governance, what does that look like? Are there other states in India that also have similar protections for Christian groups, that afford similar freedoms to Christians? Is that something for which there's any precedent?
Yeah, like if I take our neighboring state like Nagaland, so most of them are also hill tribe, and 80% or 90% of them would be Christian. So they are the majority, so they run the state government. And if I take Mizoram, that's our neighboring states, they would also say that almost 90% would be Christian. So they run the state. But in Manipur, unfortunately, the Hindu and Valley people are the majority. They may account for 50-something% of the Manipur population. But in Manipur, it's the tribe divided into, even the Christian people are into two sections. The Naga tribe, which would account for at least 20-something%, and then the Zokuki, which are fighting with the state government, or the Valley people, would account for another 20-something. So in that way, we are overrun and overwhelmed. So when we're fighting against the state force or the Valley people, that is very bad. So the president, as I said, would be Shillong. Meghalaya also would be a Christian state. But unfortunately, in Manipur, we happen to be a minority. That is one reason that there's some kind of discontentment over the year in terms of the political rights, or to talk about even the peaceful process, that when the Métis, they already have their right, they control the state machinery, they control everything. Now, the ST quota is only mainly reserved by the British government, or during the British rule, that the plain people or valley people not can come and buy land in the hill. Otherwise, the hill people will be marginalized. So in that way, they protected the right of the hill people, the tribal. But now when this majority valley people wants to have that same right, there's a kind of threat from the hill people. That's why the peaceful demonstration was there. But I don't know whether all the political setbacks and agenda there. So both sides trying to claim their rights. And finally, when all this fighting start, it's beyond control.
Stephen, let me ask a question. The American church, by and large, has heard passages of scripture preached. You know, Jesus says, "My kingdom is not of this world. We're to be in submission to authorities." Generally, whether or not we're prepared to actually live it out, generally there's this recognition that we'll suffer and will oftentimes be marginalized. And for some people, that's as far as their political theology or their philosophy of social life. That's as far as it goes. For your people whom you're shepherding, and again, we're talking about multiple churches, we're talking about a Bible college, we're talking about an orphanage ministry, there's multiple things taking place here. How have you had to shepherd them through recognizing several things? Not only do we need to be evangelizing our Hindu neighbors, and not only do we need to be prepared to suffer for the cause of Christ, but also here's what we can do to advocate for our own liberty, our own freedoms, our own autonomy, so that we'll continue to survive and exist, so that we can be about the mission that the Lord has given us. How have you had to shape their thinking in these areas?
Yeah, in one way, this war or conflict is driving us closer to God for those who are willing to repent and seek the Lord's face. For example, when the war started, there is a lot of fear, and a lot of people even would flee, left the places. So what we did as a shepherd or a pastor is that we stay with them, we pray with them, and we even organize overnight prayer or every morning prayer. And that way we raise the morale of the people that the Lord is on our side and this is a battle that we need to fight. And then because of that, the church has become, I think, more serious with their prayer life. And the more they suffer, I think for some, they are drawn closer to God. So that is one benefit. On the other hand, there are also many nominal Christian. I would say that sometimes the Lord allow all this to happen. He permits it so that for the benefit of the larger health of the churches. So the only thing we need to safeguard is that we need to preach and then stay faithful in encouraging them. And then when all this suffering comes up, there are lots of victims and some of them are killed. Even in my church, 2 of our pastors become the victims. One had a narrow escape. He has to be rescued from the angry mob by the soldier. And the other pastor were helping the people. There was firing and he was shot. And then he dislocated. Even after 8 months now, he is still undergoing treatment in Delhi. So with all of those suffering, the church will organize and then we're doing good works, helping the poor, helping those who are needy. In one sense, there is unity in spite of all the challenges that we are facing. So I think it's time for the churches to really seek the Lord first and then becoming more stronger to face no matter what the opposition or no matter what the situation is. So I believe this would be for the furtherance of the gospel. I don't know what will be the outcome. The Lord in His time will intervene. But my prayer is that the church will be purged, the church will become more stronger and more persevere in terms of doing what needs to be done. So we are really praying that the Lord will help us to persevere and becoming more powerful and do the work of evangelism or the work of edification.
And if I could peel back one layer of what you're saying, brother, you shared with us some time ago that not necessarily everyone who belongs to this hill tribe is a regenerate follower of Christ, right? Some have outwardly identified as Christian. Part of what this is doing is encouraging them to take seriously their faith. Now that it's a matter of life and death, especially, take seriously the things of God. And so some of that ministry is among your own people, seeing people move from nominal Christianity, not away from Christ, but all the way into Christ, so that the root of the matter is in them. Is that an accurate assessment?
That's very true. I would say that even these valley people accuse the Christian people that we are narco terrorists, but the political situation and the location where we live, very close to Burma, Thailand, the Golden Triangles, all sorts of crimes are happening. And I think this is partners in crime. These are the hill people and the valley people. It's a collaboration. But when they label the hill people as the main culprit, I don't believe in that. But I would also say that, yes, though they are Christian, nominal Christian, or becoming a Christian just by birth, that's why I keep on saying that we need revival. The church need to be purged, and the church need to take the stand. So that's where we need to be very aggressive and very straightforward in preaching.
You've mentioned several things that obviously it's pretty obvious we need to be praying for. But what are some of the other, specific things that you would like to see the global church pray for you in your situation and your churches, as they face this really difficult trial, and then hopefully by God's grace come out on the other side of it?
Yeah, now is the immediate needs. I think this is a good time for us to show compassion and love. And then through this, I believe we'll be able to win some of these suffering people, because a lot of these people are kicked out from their villages. They are without houses, and some of them are without proper income. They are still in the rehab center or relief center. They needs to be rehabilitated. And then as a church, we need to reach out those people with love, providing their material needs or physical needs. And from there, we can share the love of Christ and we can study the Bible with them. And then they need to seriously think about their faith. So that's where the Western churches can come alongside of us, partnering with us in a relief effort. We've been doing that. God's been good. And when I was visiting the United States last year, a lot of churches respond, and we're still helping the people through this relief effort. And then the second thing is that it's not only the physical need, they also need the spiritual food that needs to be served to them. We had a lot of Christians, but most of these Christians may not even have the good gospel or the true gospel. Catholicism is very strong, and all sorts of nominal Christians are there. So we need to divide, draw the line. So now is the time for us to really preach the word to them.
So one of the beautiful things about Live Global is the way that there is long-term partnership between churches in America and churches globally. So it's not just, hey, here's some money, but it's a long-term relationship with veteran missionaries. Like you mentioned, George Collins, who's obviously one of our friends and deeply admired. Used to be my boss.
The reason both of us are here today, Scott.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's one of the huge reasons I'm in ABWE or connected to ABWE still. But beyond prayer, what are some of the ways that churches are assisting the work that's there?
As I already mentioned in the beginning, we do orphanage like the one in Burma. That's also another sad story. We've been hearing from them that the Burmese, since the coup, now they're recruiting people, even children and young people. So they don't have a chance. So they would be enlisted. So you can pray for them. And then with the orphanages that we run, the churches are supporting them. But when some of the supporting churches become the victims or they are kicked out from their place, definitely, yes, the ministry suffer. So in some of these, even in our small Christian day school, we have a lot of victims. So they need help. So maybe we might be connected and we might be able to come back in the fall and present more needs on a long-term rehabilitation process also.
So our church is able to give financially. I'm sure they're not able to take trips there at this point during if it's that contentious of a war zone, but financially, are they able to support financially? Are you able to get funds and resources into those places?
Yes. Now the thing is that since most of the people living in the valley and the peripheral area adjacent to the valley are kicked out, they are coming to our town and they're resettling in our area. So in that way, it's easy to reach them once we have the money and the funds. So they become your neighbor.
And we've set up a link so that if you log on to abwe.org/Manipur and you're thinking, well, how do I spell Manipur? Well, Manipur. Yes, if you log on to abwe.org/Manipur, don't worry, folks. We'll put a link in the show notes. We will make sure that link is there so that you can support Pastor Stephen and his ministry through Live Global. Scott, to reinforce what you're saying, I love the fact that ABWE believes that there are multiple approaches that overlap that we need integrated together in our approach to the Great Commission. We need to go, but we also need to recognize the Lord is also working through people who are already on the ground doing very important things among their own near neighbors. And Live Global is a beautiful opportunity to establish relationships like the relationship that our church is forming with Pastor Stephen and his ministry. And so, Stephen, I'm so glad you've joined us here today. And if you could just leave us with one thought, speak to the American church, if you would. And brother, I know that you've spent time here in the States. I know that you've studied here in the States at Clark Summit University, and you've spent time here at ABWE. But speak to your brothers and sisters in the States. What do we need to know about the Christian life? What do we need to be prepared for as far as the fact that suffering is, well, it's in the cards for all of us at some point if we're following Christ faithfully? How would you exhort those that are listening here from North America?
Well, firstly, I thank you for the partnership opportunity that Live Global and ABWE is providing. That is, there is mutual encouragement. I always say that partnership is a two-way street. It's not just receiving, it's not just giving. In that way, we are doing together. That is an immense blessing to us. And on our part, in God's timing and providence, we live in this part of the world that we don't have the liberty that you have in the United States. But God called us for such a time like this. We need to be stand faithful. And as I say, we'll not run away from the face of persecution. And maybe the good Lord has a program for us that India is so needy. World largest populated country or nation, but without Christ, deeply religious but sadly lost. So here, I look the book of Acts. It's not about us, it's about God, and it's about his program. Only when the church is persecuted and purged, and then the gospel prevail. May the church in India welcome persecution, and may the churches in the state also come alongside of this persecuted church, that there are things that our brother in the Western state also need to learn from us. Our prayer, our perseverance. But as the world is becoming so small, the global opportunity that we have, I think this is the time that we can get involved in the life of one another. So we really appreciate the gift, the prayer support that we receive. But amidst this persecution, we can still do more. That might be what we would like to let them know.
That's good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're grateful for your ministry. Again, that link is in the show notes. It's abwe.org/Manipur. If you want to learn more about Pastor Stephen and his various ministries there that ABWE partners with. And there's video there as well. Take a look at that. You can get really a full sense of all that God is doing and some incredible things, even in the midst of all of this turmoil and conflict. When one part of the body suffers, all parts suffer together. Thank you for joining us on this show. As you already know, the Missions Podcast is a part of ABWE. To learn more about ABWE, you can go to abwe.org and take your next step in the Great Commission, whatever that is. And if you want to get more content from ABWE, head on over to Missions Podcast, whatever this thing is that I'm plugging now. If you want to get more of this show, go to missionspodcast.com. You know what? Just go to all of the websites. And while you're on our website as well, you can go ahead and hit the premium tab. Until next week, go make disciples of all nations. And we'll see you then. Thanks for joining.